Hey, what's up? It's Comic95 the Savior, and for this video, I will be giving you some advice on how I personally search for a job. So these are the 20 things that I look at and consider personally. This is my own opinion, my own experience, and what I have found to help me choose better positions. Of course, nothing is foolproof. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I've changed jobs a lot. I've quit, I've been fired, I've moved, everything has happened. So with all of this stuff, I've gotten a ton of experience with choosing an employer, and I know how to make sure I keep the ball in my court and not the other way around. So I will talk about these things in more detail, I guess, as I go throughout it, but I want to start off by excuse me, sorry, I needed to clear my throat. I want to start off by stating some obvious things. Okay, sorry, I needed to get some green tea to clear my throat. But anyway, I wanted to start off by stating some obvious things. So first things first, if you are not a native English speaker, you probably don't have the option to choose all of these things like how I do. Secondly, of course, the relevance of your degree matters. For example, if you are someone that does not have a degree in education and you lack teaching experience, you probably don't have the freedom and flexibility to choose things the way that I do. So again, take my advice with a grain of salt, and this is based on what I personally like and prefer. Different people like, different things. They look for different stuff in their employer. So you might feel differently about what positions you prefer. This is what I prefer. This is my experience. I've been in Japan for several years. I am bilingual, technically trilingual because I can speak Spanish too, but I'm not all that fluent in Spanish like how I am in Japanese. So if those things matter in making your decision, just putting that out there. I'm a Black American female. I'm in my 20s. So yeah. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, again, like I said, my opinion, my experience, personal, honest advice on how I find my jobs. This may or may not apply to you. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Number one, I consider the position. So for me personally, I do not like assistant language teacher jobs. I do not like language school jobs in which you're working at, Japanese eikaiwa. And my reason being is I'll talk about this a little bit later. For starts, the salaries tend to be lower for both positions. The hours are not as stable for positions like at an eikaiwa. While of course you are normally working a set amount of hours, the problem that I have with that company is that depending on the school, you might have shifts. You will have moments where there's, classes get canceled, students don't show up, they show up late. You're normally working pretty much for the whole day. So oftentimes the eikaiwas, they have you start, in the afternoon until evening. But anybody that's an adult that's been working for a while, you know that basically when you start work in the afternoon or evening, even although you don't have to be at work yet, you spend the whole day with the mentality that you are at work. So sure, my job doesn't start till 11 or 1 o'clock, but I spend my whole morning around the fact that I have to go to work later. I personally prefer the more stable 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 type work here. I don't like having to think the whole day, I have to go to work in 2 hours, and it's just like you don't have enough time to do anything in the morning, and then once you get off work, there's no time in the afternoon or evening either. I don't like to assist teachers. I like having control over my own classroom, and honestly I find it kind of even insulting in a way, like to have somebody that's not a native speaker leading my class. And I'll get to this later on with another point. So it's not a pride or nationalistic thing, but rather if I'm going to teach somebody a language, I want to make sure I'm doing it the right way. And it's really hard to work together with Japanese teachers. That's for, I think, the last point on my list actually, but I'll talk about that later. So yeah, I consider the position. I don't do ALT jobs. I hate them. Pay is too low. I don't like having to switch schools, and I don't like that it totally depends on both the school and the classroom. I know that for some assistant language teacher jobs, you have more freedom and you can do whatever you want, but I like the stability of being able to teach the same kids all day, every subject, and really get to know them. As an ALT, unless you're only working for one or a couple of schools, which most do not, it's impossible to pretty much get to know all of your students. You'll only memorize students if they were exceptionally bad or exceptionally goody two-shoes, and I don't like how impersonal that is. And I feel like you deal with more extreme classrooms, where you have kids that either really don't care about your lesson or that are really bad, and it's just too much for me. Number 2, I look at the job description. So while this might seem like common sense, again, schools in Japan are not like how they are in the US. They vary significantly, even though schools in the US do too, but I feel like in Japan they vary a lot more significantly from company to company, school to school, etc., management to management. And with that said, there are certain things that I don't want to do job-wise, based off of my experience, based off of my degree, based off of my nationality, and based on the pay that they're providing me with. And some of those things include anything that has to do with working with really young children. So the youngest age that I'm willing to teach is kindergarten at this point. It is my preferred class. And I didn't feel this way at first. I personally used to think that I preferred high school and junior high students, but I like the, lovingness and fun that you have with younger kids, but I also like them to be old enough where you no longer have to worry about children wetting themselves or not knowing how to go to the bathroom. Another big reason why I want to avoid young kids, Japan has a really nasty policy about how they handle taking care of young children. Generally, when potty training, which you have to do with children that are, like 2-3 years old or younger, they're required to normally strip entirely, taking off, their pants, underwear, everything. And you're helping with this. You're not provided with gloves. You're not given, the time, or you're not encouraged to wash your hands. Nobody does this. You will literally change diaper to diaper with your bare hands. And depending on the school, some don't even use diaper wipes. So if a kid craps on themselves, you just send them to the bathroom and have them get some tissue to wipe. It's just really cheap, really ghetto. It's just something that I personally don't like to do. This is something that it depends on the school for me, but I personally don't like schools that don't have janitorial services. I have nothing against cleaning, but let's be real, why would you rather do a job that requires you to clean toilets, scrub floors, when you can work for another company that will pay you more and has staff that handles that for you? Regular classroom cleaning is understandable. For example, I take out, the trash in my classroom, I clean my own tables, I sweep my floor, basic things like that. I wipe down my desk, my kids' desks, etc., the board. That's fine, even though there is a janitor that does that too. But having to do stupid things like taking turns with cleaning the bathroom with the teaching staff and mopping the hallways, etc., I'm not doing all of that for no $2,000. Sorry, not worth it. So again, this is, digging more into stuff because I am at a level where I can negotiate these things. I can choose, I can be flexible. If you are a new teacher, again, this is probably not the best advice for you, but I'm telling you things that for me, it's okay when you're excited about the job initially, but it gets old in the future. For me, I like knowing what I'm going to do when I go to work. I don't like having to look at a schedule and, have to think, okay, is my lunch break, going to be at 12 or is it going to be at 1? Do I have to clean the toilets or am I mopping the hallway? I don't like that. I like going to work knowing I have a set schedule. I like going to work knowing that, I don't have to do crazy stuff. So the job description will tell you a lot about the job. They might require you to actually physically play with the kids, which is fine. I don't mind doing it on my own. I'm normally at the park running around chasing them Japanese people, not asking for my permission, but recording videos and taking pictures of me doing so. And what that said is fine when I want to do it, but I don't like a job where I'm required to put on, a circus show for everyone to make my boss happy. That's problematic to me, and this is going to be in another point, but it typically tells me that I'm going to be dealing with helicopter management and snitchy Japanese staff if you're ever caught not doing this. So again, personal preference. I don't like feeling like I'm having to be fake and phony and put on a show. I don't like it, where I have to feel like I have to hover over the students and pretend to talk to them and pretend to be involved, etc. I want a normal teaching job. Your teacher in the US was not required to run around and play with you at the park. Japanese public school teachers do not run around and play with the kids at the park. I'm grown. I should be able to do it if I want to, but it should not be mandatory and required of me. I understand why the school might want it, but I also understand why it's just not for me. So again, my opinion, my preference, this is what I personally try to avoid. Number 3, I consider the salary that the position is offering. Generally speaking, I will not accept a teaching job that does not pay at least $2,700 a month. That is the minimum that I will work for. Any job that is paying you, between $1,900 to $2,500, I guarantee you it's going to be a garbage company. The other big problem that I have with that too is, with salary, is I don't personally like to work, I'll make another video on this, but for companies that don't pay their teachers based off of experience, and instead there's just a set payment for everyone. While this can be seen as good, especially if you're not a native English speaker, I personally don't like this because I know my worth and value as someone that is not only a native speaker, but that is American, that is young, that is female, that's not married, etc., which are all things that are bonuses for both, the school as well as, for the students too, because they have a teacher that is, going to be there long term, that doesn't have other commitments, etc., somebody that has a degree, somebody that has experience teaching. There's no reason why I should be getting the same salary as somebody that has never taught a day in their life and is just doing this to live in Japan. No shade to those of you watching my video. Of course, the vast majority of foreigners do not have, a teaching license, did not go to school to be a teacher, do not have teaching experience, and that's cool. But again, this is for me. I know that I am worth more money, so I'm not going to settle for a job that doesn't recognize, that doesn't see me as being a valuable asset to their company. If your employer really cares about you, they realize that it's worth it to pay you more money in order to keep you. You add value to their company. If you're not willing to make an exception for me and pay me more money because you see that I add value to your company, why do I want to work for you? In fact, better yet, I don't even like having to ask for more money. If you're not automatically offering me, a higher salary, I question why should I accept this position? You're trying to lowball me. Like, this comes off as problematic to me. If you're a good employer, your school is good to work for, it should be automatic that you want to show me that you want me to stay at your company. Give me incentive, give me reason to choose you over my other job options. Do also keep in mind that, ironically, normally jobs that pay you less also work you harder. The jobs that I've had to do the most work at, where I have the helicopter boss hanging over my shoulder, watching everything that I do, nothing is good enough for them, it is always the job that pays $2,500 or less. Always. I've never worked at a job where I was, being paid $3,000 or $3,200, where, they're asking me to do ridiculous stuff. They treat me like a normal teacher. There's trust. The employer wants me to authentically stay with them. So again, personal preference, but I cannot work for less than $2,700, and that's pushing it. That is like the absolute bare minimum salary that I will do. You obviously need to have enough money to afford your expenses. I do not want to have to work living in paycheck to paycheck. I want to be able to afford a nice apartment, to be able to afford to go out to eat. And if I feel like, I can't do that, and my job is only paying me enough money to survive, and I'm spending more than half of my rent, more than half of my paycheck towards my rent, crazy stuff like that, no. I'm not going to accept that position. It's not worth it. I'm not going to waste my time trying to negotiate with you when I know that another employer is going to be like, oh my God, we don't want to lose Ren. Hey, we'll give you $3,200 if you work for us. That's the way that I see it. Number 4, I consider the commute. Obviously, you have to be realistic with yourself. While you might really, really like your job, you don't want to have a, employer that is super, super far away from you. All it takes is for you to, miss a train, or for you to wake up late, and instead of you just being what would have been 10 to 20 minutes late, you are now anywhere from an hour to 2 hours late for work. So I really consider, how far away the school is, as well as how many transfers that I have to do. Of course, it's better to work for a company where you're on one train line and you can, easily get to and from your employer, versus having to work for a school where you need to take 3 different trains and there's 2 buses to take and then a 30-minute walk. Like, it's too much. You might really love your company, but over time you are going to feel tired of doing that. And this is a big part of why a lot of schools will not even consider applicants that don't live within about a 30 to 40-minute radius of the school. So do keep that in mind for any position that you're applying for, but also keep it in mind for yourself, your own, mental health. You're going to have to, add on more time that you're not being paid for. So you might only have to work from 8 to 5, but if you live 2 hours away from work, now you're waking up at like 4 or 5 a.m. to make sure you have time to get ready, eat breakfast, make it to the train, and ensure that even if you miss a train or two, you're still going to be on time for work, which generally means at least being 10 to 15 minutes early in order to be counted as on time in Japanese culture. But understandable, as a teacher, you should always get there before your students anyway. Number 5, I consider the ownership and management. While this might sound bad as a foreigner, I have to be real with myself. I have never had a good experience working for a foreign-owned school, with one exception to the last job that I had last year, which I really, really loved that position. But at the end of the day, obviously I quit. There were problems that came up, there were problems that came up early on, but they became unbearable towards the end of, my time working for them. But I'm not basing my experience off of that company, but rather companies before I worked for them. I find that schools that are run by foreigners, typically white guys, is typically somebody that does not have a background education, and I kind of feel like they feel as though I'm a threat or a challenge for them, despite the fact that I don't brag about my credentials. But it seems almost like they feel like they're in competition with me. I normally find that while they might call me for an interview, that is sort of a waste of time, because they're just trying to find reasons not to hire you rather than trying to actually hire you. Like, it's more like a trying to discredit your experience and kind of like show you like, oh well, there's more for you to learn, basically, which is true. But again, like, I can't explain it. I feel like there's a jealousy type issue. While I will say, in all fairness, generally schools that are run by foreigners normally offer you more money off the bat, because they know what it's like to be in your position. They used to have to work for an employer too. So while they can be understanding, I find that they are more difficult to work for in the long run, though. Again, because I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know, challenges, so to speak. I feel like there's like a jealousy like issue. So yeah, like, I've had some really weird experiences with, interviewing for jobs that are run by white guys in particular, from various countries, from New Zealand, from Australia, etc., where I literally had an intelligence test, you guys. Like, it's some type of racist stuff. I literally took an intelligence, it was some sort of English test that I had to do at this company in Nara. If you live in Japan, you've probably seen this ad before, and I actually kind of passed it. I didn't finish answering all the questions, but out of the ones that I did, I got the vast majority of them right. And while it was really obvious that one of the owners really, really liked me, the other guy did not seem sold on me. And I don't know if he was racist or what, but obviously I didn't get the job. It was very obvious that one wanted to hire me, but the other one was not sold on me and would have rather, hired somebody else. And of course, that most certainly was the case. I often find that they don't hire the most friendly teachers either. They normally hire, even more so than Japan, more looks based. But I think it's also because they realize that that is also a quick and easy way to make money as a school, because Japanese people, they honestly care more about their teacher looking good than their teacher being a good teacher. So we're not going to get into that. I'm just saying, personally, I don't like schools that are run by foreigners. I prefer to work for a legitimate Japanese school. Personal preference. There's a lot more to my reasoning behind this, but we'll just leave it here. It's not my thing. If the school is run by foreigners, I more than likely will not go through with it unless I have no other job options. Then that would be my default, final, last straw, last whatever choice that I have. Then I'll go for it. But it's not my preference. I prefer Japanese owned and run schools. I feel like things are handled much more smoothly. I find that it's easier to interview for and, get the job. So why make things harder for myself than it has to be? Number 6, I consider the size of the company. I personally don't like to work for small schools because, again, I find that you end up dealing with the helicopter boss. If you have a class, there's only 5 students and you have an assistant teacher, they're going to expect you to literally be hanging over the students' back at every second, constantly talking to them, constantly babying them, and I don't like that. I like freedom. I like a normal teaching environment, and yeah, that just doesn't go good for me. I prefer a company where they have, at least over 100 students there, and preferably more than one campus, but not where some type of giant chain school, but more like a private school where maybe they have 1 or 2 other schools in another, city or another area. That's fine. Again, personal preference, but I personally find that schools that are too small, you generally end up having to do more work, also for less pay. Whereas schools that are really big, your employer, your boss, they're too busy worrying with office work and paperwork and checking other classrooms. They're not worried about what you're doing. They trust you. They believe that you're, going to teach the kids and do your job. You have total freedom like a normal US style teacher or Japanese style teacher. And that's what I personally want. I don't like my boss hanging over me like I'm working at Walgreens and having to show that I'm keeping myself busy by facing stuff. So just my own personal preference. Number 7, I consider the number of job openings. Generally speaking, I'll make another video on this too. It is a massive red flag to me if a company is hiring for too many positions simultaneously. If for some reason let's say that the school has 20 teachers and for some reason they're hiring 5 teachers or more, I wonder, why are so many teachers quitting your company? Why are they leaving your school? Generally speaking, all I can do is help but assume it must have something to do with the employer being bad. I doubt all 5 of them authentically plan to go back to their home countries, especially if the school has a high salary. I wonder, why would they want to quit this position? So be very, weary, leery, whatever you want to call it, careful about accepting those kind of positions. If the employer is, desperately looking, for several teachers, they need part-time, full-time workers, or, they're in need of several homeroom teachers or lots of sub teachers, that's not a good sign. It's a very high possibility that they have a high turnover rate. Companies with high turnover rates have a high turnover rate for a reason. Either the employer is bad, the salary is low, the hours are crazy, the kids are bad. There's something to it. There's a reason why teachers are quitting. There's a reason why people want to go back to their home country after working for this school. That is a massive red flag. It might seem good to you because, of course, a school that has a lot of openings, unless your interview was just really bad or your references put in a bad word for you, you're going to get that job. Because even if they were really trying to choose between you and 3 other applicants, well, there's 10 openings. They can choose all of you. You want to go for the job, or this is how I do it. I try to go for the job where there's really only 1 to 2 openings, so that this way, if they're hiring me, they really liked me. That means that I stood out in a crowd of anywhere from 50 to 200 plus applicants. They authentically wanted me to be their teacher. I do not want to work for a company where they're, just mass hiring at random, because the other problem is, more than likely, it will result in a lower salary. It will result in a boss that really don't give a crap. So if you come to them with issues, problems, you don't like something, they're not going to try to sit down, work things out with you. They'll just fire you right then and there. And I've definitely had that happen to me before. I made a video about that, but that's another story. Let's keep going. Number 8, I consider the demo lesson. So a lot of people don't think much about this, but I personally consider that. A lot of the jobs I've gotten actually was not required to do a demo lesson. And while that actually can kind of be a good or bad thing, I don't really have one set formula for that. Personally, I feel like you should kind of get a good feel about my teaching experience based off of my resume and after talking to me. So I do personally have it where I have the option to choose to turn down a job that, requires me to do a demo lesson. I will admit that it places it lower on my, oh my God, I want this job list. But at the same time, it's not a total deal breaker. What I do definitely consider as a deal breaker is a job that requires me to give a demo lesson before they speak to me. If you're more concerned about, how I am teaching and putting on a show than who I am as a person, that says to me red flag that you're probably going to mass hire, you mass fire, or you have teachers that mass, quit. That is a red flag to me. Imagine if when you were to apply for, I don't know, I can't even think of like a job example for you, but I just think of it like in the US or whatever, like normally even for, low skill level jobs, like working at McDonald's or working at Walmart, they don't ask you to show them your ability to, count money or ring up groceries. They have an interview with you. They trust your intelligence. They trust that you're a good worker. Maybe that's not a good idea, but I'm just saying how it works. And for that reason, that's the way that I, keep that mindset for here too. So knowing that I've gotten good jobs that didn't require me to do a demo lesson, why am I doing a demo lesson for your position that's only going to pay me $2,000? I can get $700 to $1,200 more. What's special about your company? Why waste my time? If you don't even care to get to know me as your teacher, you're more concerned about my performance and putting on a demo lesson, basically free labor for you because you're teaching the kids and you're taking out a chunk of their day, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, normally before their lunch. So you're really kind of working for free in a sense. I don't really like that. So again, personal preference. I also personally avoid jobs that require you to do crazy demo lesson requirements where they want you to put together an entire lesson plan and send them in a 1-hour video of you doing whatever. Like, I don't do all of that crap because you might not even hire me. Why waste my time doing all of this for you? And I might not even get the job. It's stupid. It's pointless. And again, while I might be missing out on some stuff, I have yet to see a job that I actually thought I would like that required this stuff. The moment that I see this is required, I instantly think this must be, an assistant language teacher job in which the pay is not even worth it to put in the time to write out a full lesson plan and do a 40-minute demo lesson. Absolutely not going to happen for me. Number 9, I consider the interview requirements. So again, while I have nothing, against like getting dressed for the interview, etc., if I find that, the interview requires me to do too much, like maybe I have to wear my hair back in a ponytail, or I'm not supposed to have earrings, or no jewelry, or this, that, and the other, like, I'm not putting on an entire show for you. Again, I've had jobs where I literally showed up wearing casual workout athletic clothes, and they hired me. They looked at my resume, they talked to me, they were, realistic, and they realized I'm going to be wearing a school uniform every day. I'm going to wear a stupid, generic school, polo with their logo on the back and leggings. What's the purpose in putting on a whole show for you? in order to get this job. Like, again, I understand it from the employer's perspective, but knowing that I have other jobs, other options that don't require that. If a company requires me to do several interviews, I also don't do it. I do jobs that require 1 to no more than 2 interviews. 2 interviews is pushing it. If the job requires me to go through a screening with the recruiter, then have to do, another online interview with the school, then meet them in person for an interview, and then after that one, then we do a demo. No. I don't have time for all of that. Again, you're wasting my time. You're not worth it. There's other companies that will pay me, again, hundreds of dollars, if not 1,000 more than what you're offering, in which I only have to show up to the interview. It's 5 minutes long, and they're like, oh my god, I love your resume, you're hired. Why go through all of that with you? And again, these companies normally don't offer more pay, but they want you to jump through more hoops, and this is their way of trying to find more loyal employees. But the problem is, anybody that has real teaching experience that knows their worth, why would I waste all of this time just in the hopes of getting a job? Why waste time, money, whatever, makeup, hair stuff, for this interview, to do 3-4 interviews with you? No. I do 1 interview. Any job that requires more than 1 interview, you got to be paying me at least $3,000. You can't give me $3,000. We ain't doing 2 interviews. That's the way that I see it. So again, my own personal criteria on how I search for jobs. Number 10, I consider the PAYDAY. A company that has a bad track record of paying their employees, such as not having enough money and having to delay it, which you could find this in reviews for the company. Normally you'll see some stuff written about that, or a company that, pays you, let's say, at the end of the month. Personally, these are petty small reasons, but again, I'm in a position where I can do this, so this is what I look for. I prefer jobs that pay in the middle of the month, typically like the 10th or the 15th. It makes it easier for me to handle things like bills. If you don't know how Japan works, you are normally only paid once a month, and mainly because it is required by the law that your employer pays you at least once every month. So most employers take the minimum amount, the minimum route, whatever you want to call it, for paying their employees, in which they only pay you once a month instead of bi-weekly or weekly, like how most people get paid in the US. So with that said, I prefer that payday be in the middle of the month. It makes it easier for me to handle things like paying my rent, paying my utility bills, etc., versus being paid at the end of the month, which it could potentially coincide or come after important days, like when my rent is due or when my electric bill is due, etc. So I don't like having to save money over from the previous paycheck in order to handle my bills. I want to know that I will always have enough money in the middle of the month instead of waiting until the end of the month. Personal preference, petty reason, but again, this is what I prefer. Number 11, I consider the classroom. I personally don't like schools where you don't have a private classroom with your own door, own room. You'll see ghetto schools where they literally have just dividers up or curtains, etc. I don't like that type of crap. I also prefer schools where I have creativity, a creative license where I can decorate my classroom, do what I want with it, where there's actual chairs and tables and there's a play area, because I'm working with kindergartners. So where you have stuff inside of your classroom, like you're not dealing with some sort of like ghetto open area where there's like 6 classes kind of combined. The school is too cheap to afford separate classrooms, so it's really like just this open office space like area, and you have kids from different classrooms running in and out of yours, and it's distracting, it's too much, and it's cheap on behalf of the school. These schools are making over $1 million a year. There's no excuse for them to not have the money and funds to build a wall to make an actual classroom and add a door, or move to another building where it's already there. So personal preference, I want my class to look like a real classroom and be able to decorate, put things up on the wall, rearrange stuff, move furniture, etc. If I can't do that, I don't want to work here. Number 12, I consider the curriculum for the school. Now this one's kind of tricky for me. In one sense, I prefer schools that do have a curriculum because it makes it easy for you. You don't have to spend a lot of time lesson planning. But at the same time, schools that don't have a curriculum can also be really good and fun because you have the freedom to decide what you think the children need to learn by the time they graduate. So kind of having different feelings on whether I prefer a curriculum versus a school not having one. But the one thing that does remain solid is I don't like working for schools where you have zero license to do anything, where you're kind of things are set in stone. So it's like, okay, we did this last year, so we're going to do this exact same thing. No freedom. No, you can't change this. We're keeping the same craft, same activity, same whatever. Part of me understands it, but at the same time, I feel like you not giving me the license to do that shows that you don't trust me as a teacher and that this is just a business for you. I think about how things are in the US. Yes, you normally do pretty much do the same thing, same project, But as the teacher, you have the license to change things when and where you see fit. You don't necessarily have to go to the principal or your employer or whoever to explain the little things that you want to do. So I kind of like working for schools in which there either is no curriculum or instead there's just goals and a guideline. For example, let's say that you're teaching kindergartners. The goal is they should be able to skip count by 2s, 5s, and 10s by the end of the year up to 100. Okay, that's fine. That is enough of a curriculum for me. I don't like a curriculum where there's vague, goals. Like they should be able to say, understand A, S, D, F, phonics and be able to spell these 3 words. Because then it's like, okay, like how am I supposed to plan activities with this stuff? Like I can't explain it, but basically I like it where there's guidelines, like milestones that they need to cross by, the end of the semester or the end of the year. But I don't like it where, it's literally like super vague, stupid stuff that they want to be done within a certain day or a certain period of time. You often find that schools that have those type of curriculums were not designed by actual teachers, nor were they designed by native English speakers, and they're normally full of errors, full of weird stuff, full of things that are far too advanced for kindergartners, etc. And it just makes me more stressed out as a teacher. I personally prefer to have control over the curriculum myself. I understand why an employer doesn't want their teachers to do that, but again, that's cool, that's their choice, but it's just not the position for me. I personally try to avoid these kind of jobs. Number 13, I consider the assistant teacher style. I talked about this earlier in the video, but what I'm really getting at is I really don't like having schools where they don't have assistant teachers, but they have co-teachers. Basically, your co-teacher becomes a micromanager/manager, where you don't really get a final say. You have to do whatever they want. While Japanese people can be really nice outwardly, they are not very great partners to work with, especially if you're working with other women. They normally want to have full control and do things their way. And if you disagree with their ideas or try to put in your own, they will act really passive and really childlike with you. And I really don't like that. That really aggravates me. I prefer to work in an environment where I am truly the homeroom teacher and you as the Japanese staff are truly my assistant teacher, and you go along with and follow what I say, what I want to do. I am someone that is easy to work with. I don't act like a jerk for the people that do assist me, but I don't like that whenever there's the reversed role or whenever we have a co-teacher role, it doesn't work that way with the Japanese staff. They feel like I have to agree with anything that they say and do, even although they're not the native speaker, and they're not going to be the ones responsible for the class or teaching the students. It all falls on me. So I don't like schools that try to satisfy their Japanese staff's, ego basically by making it where, oh, we have co-teachers. We don't have Japanese assistants. It drives me crazy. And you will also find that schools that run that way typically don't have teachers that stay for more than 1 to 2 years. They normally quit. And I think a lot of the teachers don't even realize that's the reason why the turnover rate is high or why they wanted to quit. But I notice that schools that have true assistant teachers that really just assist, they, really just support you and teach the Japanese class, etc., those teachers generally stay at the same company for years longer in comparison to schools where the Japanese assistants are more like snitches that go back to the principal, go back to the owner, report on what you're doing, make things complicated, act really anal if you don't, go along with their ideas. I don't like dealing with that crap. So for me, if the Japanese assistant is going to be my co-teacher, count me out. To be honest, I don't even feel the need for an assistant other than taking the kids to the park. So yeah, it's not my thing. I don't accept those kind of jobs. Number 14, I consider the work days and hours. Again, I know my worth. I know that I can get better. I'm not going to work for a company that has you working Tuesday to Saturday. I want my Saturdays to myself. Monday seems like a nice day to have off, but it feels like a work day. You have to deal with the rush hour in the morning and evening. Most of your friends, family, your partner is going to be busy at work, so you won't have anyone to hang out with, which might seem nice at first, having the time to yourself, but it gets old really fast. It doesn't feel like a true off day. I prefer to have my Saturday and Sunday to myself. Also, I don't like, as I said earlier, jobs that have you working like, 11 to 8 or 1 to 7. Like, I don't do those type of shifts because, again, you're mentally at work all day, and by the time you get off work, everything is closed. Your friends are ready to go to bed and get ready for work the next day. Like, I don't like that. Again, I know my worth. I know another employer will have me working 8 to 5 or 8:30 to 5, whatever, and that works a gazillion times better for me. Why complicate things and make things more difficult for myself? There's absolutely no reason ever to accept a position like that, especially since I know that it's a cheap way for your employer to get around giving you your vacation days. I said this before, but an employer that has you working Tuesday to Saturday it's really a trick. As I said in another video, typically most holidays in Japan land on a Monday. So if you're already, given Monday off, all your employer has to do is pay you the money for that day that you already have off, which sounds great. That's why you want to take vacation days, right? Well, wrong. It was already a day you have off. That means that you're basically losing about 5 to 6 vacation days a year by working this, Tuesday to Saturday job. So, whereas if you work Monday to Friday, you gain those extra, 4 to 6 vacation days, etc., in which it is your employer's job to find a replacement substitute teacher for those days that you have off. So, again, if you don't mind, that's on you, but I do care. And this is coming from somebody that doesn't even travel pretty much. I normally stay in Japan. I don't even really care to take vacation days because if I really love my job, I don't like having sub-teachers because they never do things the way that you need it to be done. The kids end up behind, and I really love my students, so that's another story, not going to get into that, but I am just saying that I personally do not work for companies where I have in between hours where you're working kind of in the morning, kind of in the evening, and I also don't like, companies where you're working Tuesday to Saturday. I will not accept those jobs. I also don't accept jobs that have rotating shifts, etc., where sometimes you work 8 to 5, other times you work, 10 to 7. Like, nope, I don't do that. I want set in stone hours where I know every day I work from 8:30 to 5, my lunch is at 12, simple. Make things easy for myself. I know my work. I want to be treated like a professional. That's the way that I do things. Number 15, I consider the students' English ability. Well, of course, I am an English teacher. Why make things harder for myself? I prefer to deal with students that have a higher understanding of English. It makes teaching, disciplining, everything a million times easier. You also deal with students that are more mature, generally when they are bilingual, versus students that have, a lack of, English ability. It makes things a lot harder for you when your students lack English ability versus teaching more advanced students that are more intelligent when it comes to English. Again, makes my work easier. It gives me more freedom and more choices for materials that I can use in games that can be played. Makes giving directions easier. You always get that occasional student that really just cannot speak English and you really have to work with them, and that's fine. But I don't like dealing with an entire classroom of really low-level English learners. So again, personal preference, but if the school is not prestigious, and I'll get to that later, and basically the students have random English levels and most of them have pretty much no English ability, it's not a fun environment to be in. It's not a good school to work for, is how I see it, because clearly they don't have a plan or a formula that's working for this school. Because if you were working for a good company, there will be consistency with the classes and with the students. All of the students will have a high level of English. It might not be perfect, but it's good enough. A school in which their classes, the students have varying English level. Either the school had too much freedom with the curriculum, in which the teacher, once they left before you, they took everything with them, and then the following classes kind of didn't know what was going on, and only the class, the year before them are advanced. That's all problematic. And that's why I said I prefer kind of schools that have a little bit of a curriculum where they set goals of what the students need to learn, versus a school where it's just you're the teacher, come up with something. So I don't know, mixed feelings in that, but basically if the students have a low level of English, there's a high chance that I'm not going to enjoy working there. Number 16, as I kind of already said, I consider the prestige of the school. Depending on how prestigious the school is will determine whether I want to accept this job offer or not. I prefer to work at, I didn't say this, but I should have said in my first point, I prefer to work at international schools in which they are competitive and well known, and in which they have it where students are required to do a trial lesson day in order to get accepted and admitted into the school. Schools that are prestigious like that with their students are typically the same way with their teachers. They do typically require a demo lesson, or at least they have strict hiring requirements, such as the teacher is required to be a native English speaker, typically from America or the UK or Australia or Canada, and things like that. So personal preference, I prefer working for companies like this because they typically offer you better, packages for things like your healthcare and your pension, and they give you better vacation and sick days, etc. They generally give you more freedom and treat you better as an employee, and again, it looks better on your resume. It's really great experience to have, and it's typically very easy to work for these companies that, are, uppity, so to speak. They have a good reputation within their city and within their community. That is the type of school that I want to work for. A school that is not prestigious, is newer, that, is kind of just there to make money, mom and pop type school. I typically find that they offer lower salaries. The students are typically, less well behaved. The rules aren't really clear. Like, there's just a lot of weird stuff. I don't feel like they treat you good as an employee. There are exceptions to every rule. I've definitely worked for some good, part-time jobs that were owned, by a mom and pop type couple, but just telling you what I generally look for. I go for international schools that offer high salaries, that are competitive to get into, and that are competitive when it comes to hiring their staff. They don't just hire anybody because they have blonde hair, or they don't just hire somebody because they're an American. You actually need to have a relevant degree, and they do pay you based on experience. So prestigious schools generally overlap the other things that I said early on, but of course there are exceptions to every rule. I definitely have worked for a prestigious school in which they did have some people working there that didn't even have a bachelor's degree but did have a long-term visa. So yeah, that's that. Number 17, I kind of said this earlier, but I consider the appearance of the school. A school that doesn't care about their cosmetic appearance, how they look on the outside and or on the inside, is generally probably going to be a crappy company to work for. The school has old, creaky, dirty wooden floors. It needs to be repainted. It doesn't look very much like a school. The classrooms look really dirty and raggedy. Looks like a prison. Like, I don't normally like working for companies like this. So again, personal preference. I see it as being a factor that would indicate other things. The school is too cheap to give itself a cosmetic a facelift basically, and do some simple things like repainting or getting the floors changed or buying some new desks. If they're that cheap with that, what are they going to be like with me? I know I'm not going to get a raise from you. I know you're not going to give bonuses. So if you're not willing to take care of the money maker for you, your school, how will I know that you're going to take care of me as your employee? I don't waste my time with these places. So again, if I'm desperate, if I really need a job right now, will I go for it? Yes. Will I apply to it? Yes, if I know the school is good for other reasons. But generally, this is a red flag and something that I will personally try to steer clear of if I have the choice to do so. Number 18, I consider the dress code. I don't like schools that have a lot of dress code requirements. For example, I like to be able to wear my hair however I please. If I can't wear my hair down, I can't wear earrings, I can't wear a watch, I can't wear a necklace. You have to wear shoes that are a certain color, or you can't wear leggings, or whatever the case might be. I want to be comfortable when I go to work. I want to be able to wear jogging pants if I want to. I want to be able to wear jeans if I want to. I have to dress up in a turtleneck suit and tie every day to work for your school, then I don't want the position. The main reason why is, unlike in the US, a lot of the schools here do require you to do a lot more hands-on activities with the kids. So I want something that's more flexible and comfortable to wear to work, especially if I'm going to be wearing a uniformed polo. So again, this is my own personal preference. I like jobs that give you more freedom. I even prefer schools that allow you to do things like dye your hair, even although I'm not someone that wears colored hair to work. I like knowing that I have that option, that I can do those things. I can wear whatever makeup I want to. I can wear nail polish. I can buy fake nails. I can get my lashes done if I want to. Like, I can do things like that without having to worry about changing it, on Monday when I go back to school. So again, freedom and flexibility. I like knowing that I can be myself. I don't have to put on the show or front in order to teach the students at the school. That is a major plus for me. And I do want to say something or explain something, and it doesn't come off the way that I wanted it to because of that language barrier. Maybe I used the wrong verb, or said the wrong word, or whatever the case is. So I feel like it also helps make the school a more international and comfortable environment, because generally speaking, people that can speak English, especially if they can speak it fluently, they also understand American or foreigners' culture, so they're more understanding to the way that you think. They're more relaxed. Whereas a school that is run by somebody that is 100% Japanese, they're normally more uptight. They're not forgiving and understanding. And so one more thing I just thought about too that I can add into the job description. Schools that require you to fake clean. Oh my God, I hated that. If you're having to clean the outside of the school, 15 minutes, before, right as soon as you start, basically. So the first 15 minutes you're using to clean the school and wipe stuff down, etc. Like, that's stupid, silly, childish crap. Like, I don't like having to do that type of stuff. If something needs to be cleaned, that's fine. If we're asked to clean at the beginning of the day, our own classrooms, that's fine. But cleaning stuff that's already been cleaned just for the sake of cleaning it is stupid. And again, it's a matter of the employer trying to get their money's worth out of you. They feel like you're not valuable. If I'm valuable to you as an employee, you want me to use that morning time or that extra time to lesson plan, to be relaxed, to do anything that I feel the need to do. I can even add into the job description, not being able to do things like have a water bottle in your classroom, or not being able to eat in your classroom, or not being able to eat other food if it's not going to be the same lunch as what the kids are having. Not being able to have your own private lunch time, but having to have lunch with your students. Like, why do that type of stuff to yourself? So job description is super important. Management is super important for a school. So that is it. Again, like I said, there's more things that can be added. This video is long enough. I hope this helped some of you with trying to, find a job and figuring out what you want. Different, strokes for different folks, basically. Some people love ALT jobs. I hate them. It's most people in Japan, it's normally their first teaching job here. Some of them do pay well, for example, if you are on the JET program, but again, the same problem remains. There's too many ifs, ands, or buts. If you're working, at the JET program or pretty much any ALT company, it's a dispatch company, basically. You don't choose where you work. They put you wherever they find a need. You normally have a longer commute, and your experience with loving or hating the school is entirely based on who your management is and entirely based on who the group is that you're kind of assigned to, in which you guys go out and do stuff together. So some people like that. Some people have bad experiences with it. I don't like that gamble. Why work for some crappy public school when I can work for a prestigious uppity school where we go on field trips on a monthly basis and they pay for everything, and I get all of this freedom and flexibility. It's my classroom. I get a desk. I get my own area. I don't have to pretend to support Japanese teachers because my class was canceled, like stupid crap like that. I don't have to deal with. So my own opinion is what I personally prefer. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like and leave a comment down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and you can also add me on Snapchat and like my Facebook page as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.